Hey, what's up, everybody? Vic here. You can see the Sedona views behind me. And welcome to my first episode of my first ever podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. My podcast is called Rolling With It, which is the same name as my book, Rolling With It Lessons Learned While Sitting Down, which you can get from my website, rollingwithvik.com. And on this episode, I have Anita Moorjani. You guys are going to love this episode. Anita Moorjani, she's a New York Times bestselling author of the book Dying to Be Me. She's also written the books What If This Is Heaven? And her most recent book is Sensitive is the New Strong. And she really helps people on the spiritual journey really understand more and more how to live like this. She had a near-death experience that where she met her father and best friend who told her that she had a mission. At the time, she had end-stage cancer and was in a coma. And they told her that she was going to come back to life, completely heal, and teach the world to love themselves. And that's exactly what she's doing. You guys can't miss this. This is, there's so many nuggets and amazing things that Anita Moorjani shares with us in this episode that she got from her experience going to the other side. So definitely check this out, and I'm looking forward to knowing what you guys think. Here you go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of my podcast, Rolling With It. I'm so honored for my guest today, Anita Moorjani. She's the best-selling author of the book Dying to Be Me. She's also wrote What If This Is Heaven? And her most recent book, Sensitive is the New Strong. I met her back in 2011, and she's impacted my life so greatly, and I'm just so honored that she's here and that we get to have this conversation. So welcome, Anita.
Thank you so much. Wow, it has been 10 years. We met in 2011. You're absolutely right. When Wayne introduced me to the world stage, it's incredible. Yeah.
Well, you know, it's interesting, and that's probably maybe a great place to start, because I had my accident in 2006 that left me in a wheelchair, and in 2010 was really the time where I started moving forward in my journey, and I started seeing synchronicities, and my mom was really into Wayne Dyer. And so I would tell her all these things, like all these coincidences that would happen, things like, you know, getting connected to wheelchair basketball, getting connected to jobs and different things, and she'd be like, oh, Wayne Dyer calls those synchronicities. That's how I learned that word, you know? And then it was in September 2011 that he had the Hay House conference in New York, and my mom wanted to go there and told me to come with her. And on the way over there, she just kept saying, I'm going to meet Wayne Dyer. I'm going to meet Wayne Dyer. I'm going to meet Wayne Dyer. And we go there. We get to our seats. She goes to the bathroom before the event starts, and then she comes out, and Wayne Dyer's standing right there. She goes to him, and she's crying, and she's like, Wayne Dyer, your work has meant so much. My son had this accident. And, you know, he was wiping her tears and hugging her. And he was asking her, like, you know, where are you sitting? Your son's here and all this stuff. And then he's like, okay, I got to get on stage. And he gets on stage starting the entire conference saying, I just met this lady, and her son had an accident. And, like, and I'm here, like, really new to this world, you know? And I didn't think my mom was going to meet Wayne Dyer just because she said it over and over again, you know? And he called me out, and he told me he really wanted me to pay attention to what he had to say that day. And it was in that speech that he spoke about your story. And we were just like, oh my God, her last name's Moorjani? Like, she's Cindy, right? You're the same type of Indian that I am. And it was just this crazy coincidence. We literally left that place connecting with our relatives in Hong Kong. We got your number, I think, the next day, or your business's number, and then my mom was emailing you back and forth, and then we met you the next month when you spoke for the first time.
Yeah, wow. I remember that. I remember your mom calling us in Hong Kong, and so we were still living in Hong Kong at the time. Wasn't that incredible? And then, I said, I'm flying to Pasadena, I'm flying to LA in October to speak on stage with Wayne Dyer, and your family came to Pasadena and we met there. Wow, it feels like almost like yesterday. It doesn't feel like 10 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know. Time. I don't understand time anymore. It just feels like a blip a second, and we passed 5 years. And,
yes.
But it was also an important time when we met you, because my cousin had passed away February 2011 from cancer.
I remember that. It had just happened. Yes.
And so it was. I mean, it was obviously divinely orchestrated for all of that, and that was the first time that I heard that time is not linear, and that all these things are possible. And if you can just touch on a little bit, because you have such an incredible, miraculous story of being at death's door, crossing over, getting a glimpse of what it is like beyond this world, and then having to come back, and then having this miraculous healing. Can you explain some of that for us?
Sure. So I was diagnosed with lymphoma in 2002, and it progressed over a period of 4 years. And in 2006, I was at death's door. I had tumors the size of golf balls from the base of my skull all around my neck, under my arms, in my chest, all the way down to my abdomen. My lungs were filled with fluid. My body stopped absorbing nutrition, so I weighed about 85 pounds. Because my body stopped absorbing nutrition, my muscles just completely deteriorated. My muscles became atrophied. I wasn't able to walk. And because my lungs were filled with fluid, I wasn't even able to lie flat. If I would lie down, I would choke on my own fluid. I would feel like I was dying, like I was choking to death. So I had to be propped up all the time. I was miserable. I was in so much pain and so much fear. And then on February the 2nd, 2006, I went into a coma, and the doctors told my family that these were my final hours and that my organs were now shutting down one by one. They told my family that I wasn't going to come out of the coma. But unbeknownst to everybody around me, I was no longer in my body. My coma, my body was in a coma, my eyes were closed, but I continued to exist. And I felt like I was outside my body, and I felt incredible. I felt light and free, and I felt expanded. I just felt incredible. I felt like I was it was nothing like I'd ever felt in physical life before, because all the pain was gone, the fear was gone. I had feared cancer, I had feared death, I had feared the treatments for cancer, I feared everything. And all of that fear was just gone. All the pain and discomfort was gone. And I felt like I could just be anywhere I wanted to be. I felt so expansive. It was just the most incredible feeling. And in that state, I call it like the state of clarity, where it was like time was not linear. I could access information in the future and in the past. I could access information like because I felt like I was given a choice as to whether to come back into physical life or not. And no part of me wanted to come back because it was so amazing on that side. But I was able to access information like, what would my life look like if I did come back? And I could access information from what we call previous past lives. But all that information was there, not as if, it was all there simultaneously. It's like going to a library and seeing everything there. So it's not like, so when we cross over, it's not like everything is linear. It's all there simultaneously. and you can choose what to access. That's kind of what it felt like. And I also felt like I was surrounded or enveloped by this feeling of unconditional love. Just beautiful, pure, pure love. Nothing like I'd ever felt in this physical life before. It was so unconditional. You know, I realize now that even using the word unconditional is pointless, because if love is conditional, then it's not love. It's something else. Love has to be unconditional, right, for it to be love. So what I experienced there was this just incredible pure love. And it was like I didn't have to do anything to prove myself to be loved. I was loved just because I existed. And it felt like I was loved by everybody, like the whole universe, by source, by spirit, by angels, by everything. It wasn't like there was just one being that I would call God. It was like there were a lot of beings and a lot of energies, and I was loved by all of it. And it was just the most incredible feeling. And it felt like no matter what I had done in my life, I was not being judged for it. I was not being shamed or judged. Those are all stuff we do here in physical life. It doesn't happen there. And I understood why I had got the cancer. I understood that I hadn't fulfilled my purpose yet here in the physical. One of the people around me I had deceased loved ones around me. One of them was my dad, and my dad said to me that you need to go back, and you have gifts waiting for you, and you need to go back and live your life fearlessly. So eventually I made the choice to come back into my physical body, and as soon as I came back, my body healed very, very quickly, and the doctors couldn't explain it. Everybody was shocked. My family was shocked, and I wasn't supposed to come out of the coma, but I did. I started to wake up, came out of the coma, and tell everyone, oh, wow, I'm not supposed to die. And they thought I was being delusional. The doctors told my family that I was delirious, and it happens when you've been deprived of oxygen and stuff. But no, I really did heal. In 5 weeks, they could find no trace of cancer in my body, and they let me go home from the hospital to live my life cancer-free.
So beautiful. I have told your story so many times to so many people, and you know, it's just it just gives you this sense of possibility and knowing that there's so much more than our, you know, limited lives, and that we can tune into that. And something that what I really took from our first conversation was that you said that, like, this is about living for yourself. This is about, you know, doing what you want to do. And we get conditioned so much by society and by our families and by, you know, everything on what we should be doing versus, you know, what's the right and wrong way for a lot of things. And at the time, I was finishing up an accounting program in college, and I hated accounting. And I literally went back home and started thinking about being a comedian. And there was just being in a wheelchair and being in so many different social situations, I felt like I always had to bring some sort of comedic light to it, because most of the time I was meeting people who had never met a person in a wheelchair or not been in a social situation with somebody in a wheelchair, or maybe as independent as I was. And so I would always just say things like, "That's how I roll," or things like that. And then it would break the ice, and people were more comfortable. And then after really hearing you, my thought processes went to this idea of becoming a comedian, a sit down, not stand up comedian. and then I ventured into that, and it was amazing. It was like a 2-year thing that I think I had to explore, and it was really this ability to express myself in such a way to because I feel like there people in my situation are not received in many ways. It was my opportunity to really express that in kind of like an R-rated situation, and so I love to hear your thoughts on us kind of going for things like that are a little bit unconventional, but almost as a calling and need to be followed.
Yeah, I truly believe that people need to follow their heart and follow their calling and do what brings them joy. And a lot of people are still afraid of a message like that. They're afraid of sharing a message like that, spreading a message like that, because they honestly believe that it leads to people becoming selfish, self-serving, egotistical, anarchist. They believe that it's not good for the planet. But here's the thing. I think that having a whole planet of unfulfilled people is even worse. I really do. And just think about that. If everybody's unfulfilled, everybody's unhappy, nobody's following their calling, how much worse that is. And so one day in one of my workshops, I had this big audience, and actually I tried this a few times, where I asked everybody in the audience to write down or to share, like if every need of yours was fulfilled, if you allowed yourself to fulfill your needs, because people are all saying that, oh, I can't do this, I would love to do it, but it's too selfish, I have responsibilities, blah blah blah. So I would say to them, if you allowed yourself to fulfill that need, like if you imagine you were in circumstances where money was no object or whatever, and you allowed yourself to fulfill that need within you, no matter how selfish it feels, what would you do next? And so then they would come up with another thing. And they said, if all my needs were fulfilled, I would want to go traveling. I would want to go on a cruise. I would, and if money was no object. So then I would say, okay, and once that need is fulfilled, what would you do next? And you take them until every need is fulfilled. And to a T, every single person, when every need is fulfilled, and you say, what would you do next? The final thing is always, I would be of service to the world. And they would say it in their own way, in different ways. But every single person, once they get it, that, all my needs are fulfilled, what would I do now that all my needs are fulfilled? I need nothing. They would say, I would build houses for the homeless. I would feed, I would do this. It was always, always to a person. It was always a service, always. Once everybody's needs are fulfilled, they realize that what brings them the most pleasure is service to others. The people you see who are not serving others are the ones who still live in this scarcity mentality, who have been conditioned not to fulfill their needs because it's selfish to fulfill their needs. They end up constantly searching, going into burnout because they're living a life that's not their life. And they end up being the ones who are searching for power and greed and all of this, because they're looking for a way to fulfill a need that is never going to be fulfilled because they don't know how to.
Right. Oh my God, that's so. I love that exercise. I almost want to implement it with some of the work I do, and it's so true. In my experience, I did comedy for a couple of years, and then I dabbled with speaking, and there was always this idea that I was writing a book, but I wasn't maybe connected to it as much as I needed to be at the time. And so there was a lot of like searching and getting a job here and there, or and really the passion was this work, right? Really connecting to yourself and evolving and expanding. And what happened was I had 3 years back to back to back of health issues that came into play. And I contacted you multiple times throughout those periods because, I learned now I wasn't connected to, even though I knew a lot of like what you said, you talked a lot about acceptance and like living as if every moment is perfect, and I started adopting a lot of these mindsets. But what I didn't do was I didn't allow myself to go into the places that needed emotional healing or release. And so as I was stepping into these different possibilities that I wanted to experience and wanted to get, and my intention was really to expand myself and get a better understanding of spirituality, what happened was I had 2 back-to-back years of pressure sores and then another infection that came after that where I was bedridden for, the first time was, close to 6 months, and the second time was, I think, 3 or 4.
Wow.
And every time when you're stuck in a situation like that, like you cannot do anything but deal with the stuff that's coming up.
Yes.
And because I had met you, because I had an understanding, I knew I had to kind of release this. And it was funny because a lot of the things that were happening, like, I had to be on a special hospital bed at home, and I had to do all this stuff. And it was all things that happened after my initial accident when I got paralyzed. There were so many things that were reminiscent that caused me to kind of remember all these other experiences I had before that I maybe didn't completely process. And I learned through that 3-year period how important it is to process our emotions, feel the pain fully, go into, because we, especially, there's so many of us. I feel like everybody lives their lives and they feel their pain to a certain degree, and then they don't go further than that, and they feel their joy to a certain degree, and they don't go further than that. And it's about living life fully and experiencing both sides to the extent.
Yes.
Right?
It is. And it really is, exactly. You've hit it on the head. It is about living life fully, and it is about dealing with your own stuff. And it's really interesting. I remember when you were going through all the stuff that you were going through, and it's hard, and it's so hard when people are going through a phase of life that is so uncomfortable and so painful, and all they have is themselves, and they have to turn inward for their answers. And you were smart, though. You knew to turn inward. I know people who go through painful situations, and here's the thing that I tell people, and this is more for the people listening in, not for you, because you knew to turn inward and do the work. But there's a lot of people that don't turn inward, and when you blame the world outside for what you're going through, or you're constantly putting the responsibility on other people to make you well, and you're saying that, you need to make me well, you need to do this, you need to other people, whether it's to healers, teachers, whatever. When you're constantly putting the onus on the world outside, it's less effective. It takes longer for you to heal because you're not taking ownership of what you're going through. And what I mean by taking ownership is, it's not a case of blaming the victim, as some people may think. It's not about saying that, it's my fault this happened, but it is about taking responsibility for creating a different future, for being involved in creating a different future, and saying, okay, this is my body, this is my life. I must have at some level co-created this. It's not my fault. I'm not blaming me for doing it, but let's see how I can create differently. What have I done so far to bring this on me? What are my stresses? What are my issues? What have I been, what are the things that have pushed my buttons? And it really is about turning inward and looking at all that stuff. And you can work with healers and teachers and all alongside, but everything that other people are doing for you will be much more effective when you take ownership of where you are. And so I often tell people that the ones who keep getting the same thing, the same illness, the same thing reoccurring over and over again, it's usually, and I've noticed this pattern with people, and when I see their languaging, it's usually because they haven't taken ownership yet. They haven't said, okay, what am I doing to recreate this every time? They're constantly still putting it on, oh, that person did that to me. Oh, that person hasn't healed me. Oh, they're a lousy doctor, or it's always about them. And that puts them in victimhood, and they're giving their power away. And what a lot of people do is they make the mistake of, because you don't want to be at fault for something, it's easier for you to blame other people for your predicament. But what you don't realize is by blaming someone else for your predicament, you're also giving that person the power to have put you where you are. You need to be in the driver's seat and say, no, I put me where I am so I can take me out. When you say that person put me where I am, then what you've in essence done, you've said, oh, so I need that person to now take me out.
Oh my God, totally. I that was like probably after those 3 years was the lesson I came into, because I think after the first issue, a health issue, I got through it. I released a good amount of stuff. I processed a good amount of stuff, but I was still kind of coming back, and then going back to life. I'm like, all right, I'm done. And then you kind of come back to some similar patterns, and not really that after the end of those 3 years, it was like, all right, I am doing something that needs to change. There is some level that I am creating this, and and it's not like it's because a lot of things like the stuff that was happening to me are normal to somebody that's a paraplegic or that has a spinal cord injury or has a lack of sensation, and so it was almost like, oh, this is because of my condition, that this is how I hope this doesn't keep reoccurring. And it was kind of in that kind of frame of mind. And then it was like, no, wait a minute, like I'm beyond this. I'm more than my situation, and I can actually think about this in a completely different way. And it's never happened again since I've really changed my mindset and been more, it takes you to another level, because you have to hone like a whole other level of awareness, right? Because there's so many subconscious thoughts. There's a lot of things people are not willing to look at or as deep as you want to go. But this period really pushed me into like, okay, I am not allowing myself to go into certain spaces and staying more in a direction in the person and creating the person that I want to be.
It's actually very beautiful to hear you say that, because it's a very aware path that you took. Many people wouldn't have. Many people would have continued to just accept that this is part of my condition, and other people have to keep helping heal me. And so it's a very, very aware path that you took, which is really great. Kudos to you on doing that.
Thank you. You're a big part of why.
Oh, you give me way too much credit. Wow, thank you. I'm really touched. It makes me happy that the things I say and do and write actually help people, and that is yeah. But in the end, it's you that's done the work, and you deserve the kudos, really, because I come across people that I have shared my work with, and they just don't take it on board, so everybody's got their own path, and it's just beautiful to see how you've come such a long way. It really is.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a journey, and I think it's the universe, I guess, puts people in your path that lead you or help along the way, and you were a big part of that. And then it was just interesting that I started getting into Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, and at like literally like maybe it's 6 months or like less than a year before, you did a cruise with Dr. Joe in March 2018, and I told my mom, I was like, we have to do that, and that put me in a place where we had dinner together. And I remember that one time Dr. Joe walks into the same restaurant, and he goes to me and he's like, I'm going to go and have dinner with my staff over here, and I'm going to come and have dessert with you. And he came and he sat at our table, and I was able to have a very in-depth conversation with him because he also had a spinal cord injury that he healed from, and that was able to give me quite a bit of insight that led me to go to Dr. Joe workshops, which are, I feel like he just kind of created like a framework to tap into other realms or other possibilities, and my life got really like to a whole other level of mystical with his work. And a lot of the focus of me on this journey, a lot of the motivation for why I've taken everything and applied everything to the degree I have has been because of I want to walk again. And seeing that and seeing that or that being kind of the goal or the end goal of this, which I realized ended up kind of an issue. In the Dr. Joe workshops, I had very incredible experiences where there were multiple times where I was in a meditation and then I started perceiving like a vision of my future, of being healed and walking, and then like being part of that community. A lot of people in that community started calling me, hey, I just saw you in my meditation, you were walking, or even in the workshop there would be that. And so even like in 2 years I went to 6 Dr. Joe workshops between 2018 and 2019, and there were times where like my expectation of this happening rose to such a degree that I was like, all right, it's got to be the next one, and it didn't happen. And so it made me go into a space of like, after kind of dealing with the pain of having that expectation, I've seen so many signs and possibilities and showing me that this is possible and will happen one day. However, what I realized was that it's about the journey, and it's about not wanting, like not caring if that happens or not. And I spent a lot of time, thinking about this book and what my service was to the world. And I felt that me in a wheelchair, I had to walk to do my service, and that was a big kind of block for me for a while. And it wasn't until 2020, last year, when I was just kind of like, no, it's time to like write this book and time to, coach people. I understand all this work, and whether I'm walking or not is not indicative of my ability to do that, or my, and it's almost like I felt I needed to walk or be out of the wheelchair so that other people would believe me, or what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
And so I'm just interested on like kind of like your take on, some people don't heal, or some people heal. It takes time to get there, or whatever that journey is for somebody. And so what is your take or your advice on that? Because so many people kind of go into spaces of like, I need to heal, and that being, that kind of a space. How would you look at that?
So the thing is that I can completely understand how when somebody is going through something, a physical something, that their entire focus is on healing, is on like, I really need to heal, and then they focus on it and they do everything that they can to try and heal. But what happens, exactly what happened to you, when the healing doesn't look the way that they want it to look, then it leads to a disappointment and feelings that, as kind of a feeling of a crash that's even worse than before, because you then feel, not only have I not healed, but you've lost that kind of, because even before, at least you had that hope that, oh, this might happen, but you're even lower than before because you've kind of lost that hope as well. So the thing is, what I usually tell people who are going through physical stuff that they want to heal, I actually say, don't put so much focus on the healing itself. Don't put so much focus on the actual physical healing. Instead, put focus on the life you want to live as a healed person, and try and create that life regardless. And so allow your body the space to do what it needs to do. So, for example, whatever your dream is, like if you say to yourself, if I had this clean bill of health, or if I had the ability to use my legs again, what is it that I would do? Why do I want to be well? Why do I want a long and healthy life? What is it that I would do? Start doing those things anyway, regardless of where you are. And so put your passion and your focus on doing those things that you would do, or the person you want to be, when you imagine yourself as having your health back to the image that you want it to be. So focus on that life, as opposed to constantly focusing on the physical symptoms that you're trying to heal. Because unfortunately, as we keep focusing on the physical symptoms, what we're actually doing is we're setting ourselves up to a lot of stress and a lot of fear. We're like constantly feeling this like, oh my gosh, it's not happening the way I want it to. And every time we feel that stress and that fear, and every time we're focusing on that our body is not progressing as fast as we want it to, every time we feel that, we're actually adding to the stress load and the stress energy. We're actually pushing ourselves taking a step back, the proverbial 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or 1 step forward, 2 steps back. It's our own mind that kind of does it. And so the thing is, when you focus on the life that you want to live instead, like even when I tracked people who have cancer and things like that. So the question I always ask them is, what is the life you want to live if you have a clean bill of health today? And they tell me that life, and I'll say, were you living that life before? And they say, no, nowhere near it. I was stressed out. I was in a bad relationship, blah, blah, blah. I said, that's why your body gave you this wake-up call, because you were meant for bigger and better things. Start doing those bigger and better things now, and let your body get excited. Let your energy start to get used to living the bigger and better life that you came here to live, that your soul intended for you to live. If you don't know what it is yet, start that discovery. Stop focusing on the illness and start the discovery of who you want to be when you have your life back. Because the last thing you want is to focus on the illness and get your health back, and then go back to the life you had before, the one that gave you the illness in the first place.
Right, absolutely. And that's what actually led me to, at the end of 2019, to, okay, I can be a coach. I can help people. Like, I know what I'm talking about. I understand this. I was, really getting into energy healing work, and just in conversations with friends and things like that, I would be able to kind of transform them in a conversation. And I was like, I have a knack for this. And so in October 2019 was the first time I started taking clients, and it's kind of built over time. It's really built into this really awesome business, and I'm able to impact people, and I'm present on social media, and it's actually pretty amazing to now kind of embody this. You had told me something one time when we did an event at Infinite Love in McAllen, and you had told the words you said, I can't wait for the day when I can say the student has become the teacher, and and so now I'm in this place where I've written this book that that really goes through all the lessons and all the people I've met, but really how I've applied it and looked at it from the perspective of having my health condition, and still being able to embody being a healer and a coach and helping people transform. And it blows me away, the amount of impact that I'm able to help people, and especially with my clients to see how much like they've changed and how much they've healed through working with me within a matter of 3 months. And I guess like that was the space I need to step into, because it doesn't, my life is like, I feel like it's just really become an adventure. And I don't know what's going to happen, or when the things are going to happen, or what's going to happen next. And I'm just really more focused on connecting to my intuition and following, the guidance and helping others, and just kind of seeing like where it takes me, because I know there's something way bigger unfolding that I can't imagine.
Wow, yes, I completely agree with you. There's something way bigger unfolding that you can't imagine. And the thing is that I know that you are a brilliant coach, and especially because of the journey you've been through and the type of person you are, you're very interested in people. You're very interested in self-improvement, self-learning, and self-discovery. You have the ideal personality and background and everything to be a very, very powerful and brilliant coach. So I have no doubt that anybody who you work with would be very, very impacted by you. And one of the gifts that you've received is the personal pain you've been through, through the adversity you've been through. What that does is that actually deepens you. Me going through my 4-year journey of cancer, I know what pain really is. And also, just because I healed from that, it doesn't mean life doesn't still throw me painful situations. From time to time, I also deal with stuff that really, really feels icky. It could be things like, even if I lose someone, like if somebody close to me dies, even, people expect that it doesn't affect me because I know what happens on the other side, but it still does. I miss them physically here. I grieve like anybody else would if I don't have somebody here with me, even though I know we can communicate with them on the other side. I still go through painful stuff, and pain, in a way, pain kind of makes us more divine. It makes us more compassionate, empathic. It deepens us. And you've had your fair share of pain, so I know that you're actually a very gifted coach. I would have no hesitation recommending anyone to come and see you and be coached by you.
Oh wow, that means a lot. Thanks so much. And you touch on being empathic when we really go to the depths of our pain and are able to encompass this way of being. We do feel more empathic. And you have a book that has just come out called "Sensitive is the New Strong," and I'd love if we can end on really just you touching on this book and your vision for it, and why you wrote it.
Thank you for bringing that up. This book was a couple of years in the making, and the reason I wrote the book, what started me on the journey of writing the book, was after Wayne Dyer passed away. I was like, he was like kind of like my buffer, if you will, between me and the real world. And when I was out there on my own and speaking on stage and dealing with everything, I realized that it's a lot. Like, I started to feel people's pain, and I wanted to help people who were sick, and people that come to you and say they're dealing with these illnesses or they're struggling with life. And so I started to notice that I was getting really fatigued over the years, like by 2016, 2017, because Wayne threw me up on stage in 2011. By 2017, I was getting really, really fatigued, and because I kind of felt, I took it on myself. I felt it's my responsibility to help these people. They want a healing like I did, and I need to show them and teach them. And I wore myself down trying to do that. And so what happened is that I felt really, really tired and drained, and possibly could have become sick again if I didn't change the direction of my life at that point. I was in Costa Rica, and I went for a retreat with a couple of friends invited me to come to Costa Rica, and we were at this retreat, this place called Rhythmia, and I was at this shamanic, I was at a shamanic ceremony, and then the shaman actually pulled me aside and said that, you've got these energies around you that are really dense. I'm going to clean it up for you. And he cleaned it up, and then he actually said, he looked at me and he goes, you have a special purpose here, but you're not using it you're not following it to the fullest of your ability. You're allowing all the energies here to get you down. You're here to help people, inspire people, talk to people, but you cannot take on everybody else's energy. You're here to uplift other people, not to have other people weigh you down. And I was like, right. Oh, okay. I know that, but I didn't know how to do that. And so what I did was I started to research. So I'm back in my life, still being invited to speak at speaking events and still doing things. And then that's when I started to realize that I am an empath. I had not really explored that term before. I knew of it, but I took an online test and found, wow, you're a full-blown empath. What does that mean? It means you're a sponge. You take on energies of other people. So then I thought, okay, let me research on how I can stop doing that. So I researched on it, and I developed better boundaries. I worked with a coach to actually create boundaries so I don't absorb other people's energies and so on. But then I thought, there's still an element missing, because I'm still expected to be out there on stage in the public. I'm still dealing with thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people who write to me, who have illnesses and all. How do I not absorb all these energies around me? How can I still be effective in the work I do? I don't want to be bubbled from it. So I started to look up or research people who I thought, okay, people who are empaths, but who are leaders, who are big in this world. And I couldn't find anybody. So then I read up on Edgar Cayce. And I realized Edgar Cayce, when I read about him, I realized he is an empath. He didn't realize he was. That term probably didn't exist in his time. But reading about his story, I thought, okay, now he's an empath, because he couldn't stop helping people to the point that he got sick. And I thought, wow, that's what happened to me the first time round. And it could happen to me again, where you just feel this need that everybody that reaches out for your help, you need to help them. And so Edgar Cayce got sick, and he even struggled with taking money from people who were sick. He felt it wasn't God's work if he charged for it. And he ended up dying poor and destitute. And so I started looking further, and I thought, okay, I need to find somebody who is an empath who can be a role model for me, and so that I can see how they did it. And I couldn't find anybody who was out there in a compassionate leadership role, who was alive and well and thriving and abundant and healthy, and yet an empath, and yet out there helping people. Wow. I couldn't think of a single person. And I thought, if no such person exists, maybe the closest is Oprah. I think she's an empath. But I thought, okay, if it's so hard to find empathic leaders, doesn't that say that there's something wrong with our world? Like, don't we need empath leaders? Like, what does that say? Does that mean everybody who's a leader are not empaths? Well, they're on the, like, right. Why don't we have empath leaders? And I realized that it's because this world does not support them. There are no tools. The world is really, really rough on empaths. And so I thought, if I am going to continue in the work I do and be out there, I need to develop tools. And so it started out with me developing tools for myself. And then I thought, okay, this is not just for me. This has to be for other people so that they can become leaders. Because if we want to change the world, we need more empaths to step up into leadership roles. And so that was
Absolutely.
the impetus behind this book.
Wow, really cool. It's actually really cool for me to kind of just hear your journey, you know, and you know, knowing what you've been through and your healing and your experience, and also you like having to deal with all these issues and taking on other people's energies and going through your own self-discovery, and then kind of evolving into like even more tools and more things that you can offer. That's it's quite awesome to hear, and I'm definitely going to check out your book because I know I'm an empath as well.
I'll have a copy sent over to you.
Definitely, and I'm definitely going to send you a copy of my book here soon too. Well, Anita, thank you so much for being here and having this conversation with me. It's I feel like it was really great, and you've just been a big part of my life, and it's just an honor to have this moment, especially in a time in my life where a lot of things are happening. So really thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Oh gosh, you are so welcome. It's such a pleasure to talk to you, and I am really touched and honored that to have been such a big part of your life and your journey. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, much love, and see you guys next time.
Yep. See you really soon.